Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're learning Masechta Zevachim daf Lamed Hey. We are going to begin on Lamed Hey with alpha about 10 lines from the top. Pardon my cold. So we've been learning in this daf the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda that tells us that when it comes to the Karban Pesach, if some of the dam spilled on the ground, they would take a kos and they would scoop up all the dam and do zrika in case someone didn't have a chance to do it. So we cover that individual just in case. Now, we said because Kohanim or Zrizin, certainly it can't be that it just fell on the ground, because that would be a problem, it would be dichoy. But rather, what happened was it was already in a kli sharis, and then from the kli sharis, then it fell. So that's what it's talking about. And we said even though there's a din of a mixture of dam tamsis, he holds that ain dam avatal dam. So even though there's blood in there, but we say like min b'mino is not bottle, so too it's not a problem. So Amalem Rabbi Yehuda l'devareichem, according to your words, lama paikin hazara. Now I already understand my reason why we close up the hazara drain so that I'm able to gather up all this blood. But if you hold that it doesn't accomplish anything by scooping it up, then what's the purpose of it? So Shvachu of Aaron Shielchu ad Arkavoiseihem Badam. That it's actually a tremendous praise that they would do the avoda, even though they're basically doing the avoda and their apparently their knees, their body, their clothes also apparently are covered with blood, and that demonstrates their vigor to undo the avoda even though they're getting themselves dirty. Now, Adam have a chatzitza. Understand? How is that possible? It's a chatzitza. Lahu. Well, it's not yavish, so therefore it's not considered to be, again, between the ground and his feet. It's not like he's standing on a kli because it's wet. V'lo have a chatzitza ditnan hadam v'hadiyoy v'davash v'cholav Yavishin, dried up, chaytisin, lachen and chaytisin. So you see dam, if it's lach, it's not a chatzitza between the foot and the ground. Okay, v'haka misvasi menaihu, but they're getting their garments dirty. It's nan hayu begada mitush tashin, that if their clothes are dirty, vavad avadasu psula. You can't do the avoda like that. Maybe they lifted up their garments so that only their skin would get blood, but not the garment. Losanya midai, when it talks about the garment, it has to fit. Kimidaso shol yachsel shol yoiser, can't be too high, too small. So you can't be lifting up your pants or whatever it is. So bohilecha sivarim lekevesh dolabavoidehi. We're talking about a time in which it's not a big deal, even if their clothes get a little bit bloody, because all they're doing is bringing the limbs to the ramp, and that's not an avoda. We see that in the pasuk does mention this. Bring the eitzim is not. It's tabi. Says Rashi that they would go on these like platforms. Hayusham binyan avanim ve'enu chaytzin demin haritz vahein. It was like an elevated floor. So because it was an elevated floor, the blood would go down to a lower level, and therefore they were not going to get themselves bloody. Okay, question 11. Why were they poikin es azara? So what, according to the Shita Rabbi Yehuda, it was in order that at the end they could take a kos, and even though it's mixed up with dam toraivus, and you could use it for anyone who spilled the blood from the kli. The Rabbanan say it's a shvach to b'nei Aaron sheilchu adar kavaysehin b'dam. Okay, and this of course is not the only time this sugi is brought down. So there we go. All right, let's see the next Mishnah. It says Masnisin Hashaykhin is a zevach. Let's say a person is doing the shchita, but he's doing lechol davar she'ein darka lechol, and his intention is for something in which is not fit to eat. Lahakter davar she'einu darka lahakter, or it's something in which is not fit to be burned. So kosher. Rabbi Eliezer paisel. So actually we have a machlokus over here. We had this machlokus before, whether or not this would be an issue, because maybe it's only on something in which is a davar meichel, but this is not davar meichel. So again, if you have a machshava chutzim kaimo chutzim zmanoi, fine. So it's a machlokus. So we had it before. Lechol davar shedarko lechol hakter davar shedarko hakter pachas mekazayis kosher. But if your measurement was less than kazayis, then it's not pigul. It has to be a kazayis. Lechol kachatzi zayis or hakter kachatzi zayis kosher. They're not mitzdarf. Sheinachil v'haktar mitzdarfen. Even though it's actually a machlokas, but the Stam Mishnah tells us that the two chatzi zaysim don't combine because one is an achilas mizbech, one's an achilas adam. And then the Mishnah says, "Hasheichet is a zevach lechel kazayis mina or." A person has the machshava pigul regarding the skin, or mina roitev, or this liquid, mina kippah, which are small pieces. It says Rashi, Tavlin v'dakdakus abasar, min ha'alal. Rashi says gid hatzayar, like a sinew in the neck. Min hatzamos, the bones, beginning the sinews. Min hakarnayim, min hatalfayim, the horns and the hooves. Chutz l'zman chutzim koyma kosher, because these are not things that are really it's not davar ha'achel. Okay. Ve'ein chayavon lehen mishum pigul v'nois v'tamei. So if a person would have this machshavas pigul, you wouldn't be chayav pigul, noiser, or tamei. Okay. Says Rashi, im haya hazevach pigul. In other words, even if it was pigul, shechishav al b'saroi, you had a machshava on the meat, o al imora of chutz l'zmanu mispagel, ha'echol me'elu potter. It means that if you eat any of these things, you're going to be potter. And tamei im ochel betumas haguf. If you ate while you were tamei any of these things, then it is kosher. Hashoichet es hamukdashim. Let's say someone shechs something which is sanctified, and basically, as Rashi says, this is referring to the kavus, a female animal. U'echel sholil o shalia b'chutz l'polig. That's why, of course, it's talking about a fetus, or it's afterbirth, b'chutz, little pigul. So that's not going to be pigul, because we're talking about the gufa zevach would be pigul, but not its offspring. Hamoilik es aturin, when it did malika on the turtle dove, lechel beit sehen b'chutz, to eat its eggs outside, same thing, little pigul. It's got to be the thing itself. Chol of mukdashim, let's say it's holy milk, ubeitzi turim, or the eggs of a turtle dove, and chayim lo mishum pigul v'nois v'tamei. Fine. So again, what does that mean? If, for whatever reason, it is pigul, so anyone who would eat from its milk, you won't be chayav kares on that. Says the Gemara, Amr Rabbi Eliezer, pigul b'zevach nispalig hasholil, b'sholil nispalig b'zevach. Okay, let's break this down. So, basically, if the carbon you did a pigul on, notice you shechted on condition to eat it, to be mater chutz l'zmanoi, so we say the entire animal becomes pigul, including the even the fetus. However, b'sholil, if your machshava is only on that, lo nispal gazavach, it doesn't spread to the rest of the animal. Says Rashi, Ksav Rabbi Eliezer shol gufi the zivchahavi dobri yerch imahu. He actually holds that the fetus is considered part of the carbon. Umiu ein machashavtu mefalag as zevach. Even so, it won't be mefalag the rest of the carbon. Its mother, if you will. The davar shein darko echelhu, because it's not fit to eat. The ruba the inshiu achile, because most people will not eat the fetus like this. Okay, for that matter, pileg ba'olul nispalga moira. If let's say a person had pigul regarding the neck sinew, which is edible, so that will be mafaleg also on the morah, the crope of the bird. B'moiro nispal ol. But if you had pigul on the croak of the bird, which is not something which is eaten, so it will not spread to the ol, which is the davar which could be eaten. Pigul be'emurin, a person mefaleg on the sacrificial parts, nispalgu parim. So then it's mispaleg on the whole carbon, on the parim and the srafim we're talking about. But parim when nisrafu emurin. However, if you had pigul on the par, then it's not going to be mispaleg on everything else. Why? Says Rashi, because the imorim is something which is not fit to be eaten. Or actually, the parim hanisrafim is also something you don't burn, right? You burn it. Okay. So lema masayle. Let's perhaps bring proof to Rabbi Eliezer that says mispaleg, that there's a din pigul v'afal pi shein mafaleg could go in shol moira baser haparim she'im chish b'achilos parim. If you have a machshava regarding this cow, uv'sreifasan, and it's burning, losavul klum, you haven't done anything. My love, hachishe be'emurim nispal b'parim. Sounds like Rabbi Eliezer, that if you would have the machshava on the imorim, it would be mispal b'parim. Says Rashi, B'shavin Rav Shimon Chachamim Shenechlu Beishamai the Rabbanan the Army Pigul Noig B'parim Nisrafim. He holds that that actually it is noig, even though it's davar shein, it has to be burned. Rav Shimon Omer Kol She'enu Al Mizbeach Achitzayin, since it won't be put on the outer mizbeach, Ein Chayav Mishum Pigul. Even though you can say, well, it's an achila, right? Parim and Nisrafim, but it's parim Nisrafim b'fnim. It has to be b'chutz. Shavin al grishim chishev b'achas me'avodos hadam le'echol min aparim l'machar. If let's say he had the machshava to eat the cow afterwards, tomorrow, sarfin b'sadeshen, in the wrong place, kehil chasai l'machar l'asa klum. The davar shein dark l'echol. Okay. So anyway, we see apparently that this statement is in support of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer said, if you're peelig b'zevach, nispal b'hashol, b'shol nispal b'zevach. And this is what we're saying here. She'im chishi b'achilos parim, if you have a machshava about the parim nisrafim, loss of lo klum. My love, hachisha b'amurim, if you had a machshava on the morim, nispal parim. It's still a pigul on the parim, which is what Rabbi Eliezer said over here. He said, Pileg be'emorim nispalgu parim. But parim will nispalgu emorim. But he says that if you have pigul on the emorim, it is mefalig on the par. So it's a proof to Rabbi Eliezer. Lo, that's not necessarily the case. As we continue to Lam and Hayim and Beis, perhaps we should say, Hachisha be'emorim nispalgu emorim atzman. Maybe it's only pigul on the emorim themselves, but not on the basar. Why? Says Rashi, she'ein mispaleg, but davar shu gufa shel zevach el davar hamafaleg. Okay. Kivad lo chashav achila inyan pigul lo chashav na mechil inyan aflugi. Okay. Toshma parim hanisrafim, which are burnt on the inside, useirim hanisrafim, as well as the sa'ir mu'alin behen mishahuk dashu. So there's a din ila as soon as they become sanctified. Nishchatu, once it becomes shechted, so hukshru lifsel b'tful yoim l'chasur kippurim. Then it becomes hukshur to a tful yoim l'chasur kippurim uvelina. My love, lina's basar. It's referring to leaving the meat. Ushmamina migu the pasal belina, since it passes it with leaving it over pasal hub machshava. So it also can pass with the machshava, so it's a proof. Lo, linas and morim, it just is referring to the lina of the sacrificial parts. Hamid a tiny sefer kulan mu'al behenal beis hadeshen ad shiyusach, until it's charred up the basar, habasar, mechadereishal linas basar. Obviously it says basar, it's talking about linas basar. Midi area hakadisa hakadisa, reishim morim is sefer basar. They're two separate cases. Okay. So meisvei rabba the elu shein mafalgin ve'ein mispalgin. These are things that there's no din pigel either on either side. The Gemara is going to explain later why. Semer shibarashi kvasim, when it comes to the wool that's on sheep, the sar shibe zakin tiyashim, or the hair which is on the beard of a he-goat, va'or, v'haraita, v'kipa, va'oilel, all these different things we mentioned in our Mishnah, va'moira, and the crope of the bird, va'atsamos, v'gidin, the bones, and the sinews, v'hakarnayim, v'talflayim, and the horns, and the hooves, v'shola, v'shalia, and the fetus, and the embryo, v'cholov, as well as milk, kamukdoshim, ubeitzi turin, and the eggs of the turtle dove, kulan, mefalgin, nispalgin. Then chayiv lehem mishum pigul, noiser v'tamei. If you ever find that it could become pigul, there's not going to be an iser karis on it, and there's no noiser tamei. If a person would eat it, there would be no chayiv karis. V'mal mehen b'chutz potter. So my love, lo mefalgin hazevach, v'lo mispalgin machma zevach, which is how it's actually kasha in Rabbi Lezer, that it will not do anything. Lo mefalgin as a zevach, lo mispalgin machmos atzmo by itself. Yihachi, how did tiny save a cool, lo mispalgin, hazu lamui. What else do we need to say? Tamech, ein chayav lo mishum pigul, hazu lamui, we need to say that. Apparently, that's obvious as well. That's already self-understood. El aidid boy lo misna noiser v'tamei tana pigul. Okay, so it's a little bit of a lav dafka, if you will. Okay, we'll look at question TA 15. Eza machshava mefaleges beparim hanasrafim, ve'eza machshava ena mefaleges alib derabban the pigul noig beparim hanasrafim. So he said, if your chishev l'haktir murim will machar pigul. If your machshav is to be maktir the sacrificial parts, then it's pigul. Chishev l'echol mebaser hapar o l'sarfo l'machar lo pigul. So if it's on the imurim, it's pigul. If it's on the baser, it's not pigul. Okay. Fine. So we didn't. That's it for that. Let's keep going. All right, no more questions there. So, okay. So it's Aidi Datani. Okay. So Rava Omer Afanamanami Tinina. We also have support to this statement from that which we have learned to support Rabbi Elazar that when it comes to the shol v'shilya mispalgin v'lo mefalgin, that it can cause to become pigul, but not the other way. Like the buster can't make it into pigul. Okay, so how do we see that? Hashayched as a mukdashim lechol shol shalya b'chutz lo pigul. So in that case, it's not pigul. Then we talk about the milk, and the eggs. So why does it not mention the case of the shol and the shali? It must be archive. Okay, let's look in Rashi. Machmas zevach, if it's because of zevach, then mispalgin. Machmas machshavas atzmoi or mispalgin. Okay. Tanan Hasam. Bali Mumin Rabbi Kiva Machshir. Bali Mumin Rabbi Kiva Machshir Bali Mumin. So he is Machshir when it comes to an animal which has a mum. Only an animal which has a cataract in its eye. Because the notion of Bedukin Shiba'ayin isn't a problem when it comes to birds. Says Rashi L'Chatchila, She'ein Posel Behen El Chisaron Aver. When it comes to a bird, it has to be missing a limb. right? Like its wing is dried up or something like that, or one of its limbs is completely off. Vahu shikadam hekdishin es mumin, and this is where he went and was makdish the mum. Rav Chiya bar Abba Moedim Rabbi Kiva ba'oilus nekeva. When it comes to an oilus nekeva, when on an oila we know is supposed to be a zachar, okay? But let's say you put it on the mizbeach, in which if it's put up, you take it down. The command to cut a muma lakdisha dami. It's just like a mum, because it's not shaykh as an oila, and therefore it certainly will be taken down. Masir Rab Zera hamal mehen b'chutz potter. Ha me'imon chayev v'hechi mishkachas lo ba'oilus nekeva. Amr b'shalom aksaber b'kiva oilus nekeva im also lo teiraid, that you don't take it down. So haman b'kiva he el amr im also teiraid, that you take it down, because of course carbon oil is supposed to be a zachar. So hamani ema hamal mehen b'chutz potter ha me'emuri emon chayev va mehen katani the imon dum yadidhu el ema hamal me'emureim b'chutz potter ha me'emurei imon chayev. Okay, let's look at question 12. We're going to stop there. Alib de Rabbi Kiva mumin hachsher b'oivos im olu b'behema lo yardu. B'ma moed Rabbi Kiva shavu b'shikash b'ofos im olu b'behema yaredu madua. So b'oilus nekeva, to command the kadam muma, it's like you already had a mum on it, l'hak the shadami, before you are makdish it. The chol oil zachahu, because we know an oil is always a zachar. Okay, let's see, maybe another question. Nothing on TA. TB 15 Rukiba Maksher Babal Chaim She'aim Olu Yardu Be'elu Mumin Hichsher Bikiva Umadua Bedukin Shiba'ayin of Oifois Umahadin B'oilus Nekeba Rabbi Kiva Umadua. However, Ein Shum Carbon Oil Shehu Nekeva Hakol Carbonus Oil Rak Zochel Afikach Yardu. That is correct. Adkan.